And here we are, we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversation. I am here today. I'm really, really fortunate to be here today with my friend and colleague, Julie Colbrese. And Julie, hi. And Julie,
Hi.
why don't you introduce yourself? Because I think you're going to do a better job than I will.
Oh, okay. I'm Julie Colbrese. I have a coaching practice called Hot Coffee Coaching. I believe great conversations happen over coffee. Actually, metaphorically, I don't judge if you're not a coffee drinker. Tea is just fine, or whatever else. I've been coaching for 17 years. I'm trained and certified through the Coactive Training Institute, where I'm on the faculty, and I have an MCC from the ICF.
Wow. That it's so this is also the place, Julie, because you didn't mention this is where I want to mention that formal or informal, you are indeed one of my coaching mentors.
Aw, thank you.
So I am delighted that you're here and having this conversation with me, and particularly because the topic that we're going to discuss is bringing potency to a coaching relationship, and the way that I've been thinking of it is. Coaching is a big investment. Coaching is something like deciding that you want to invest in coaching is a big deal. So what do clients need to think about, before they show up so that they can get the very best experience?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of it, I mean, we were talking before about being intentional about being the relationship. And I think that potency happens before the coaching starts. So part of it is about finding the right relationship and really being diligent about it. And, in a lot of ways, I mean, one of the analogies that I use is about like hiring a personal trainer, and I've done, I was saying to you previously that I just switched gyms and switched trainers. And I did look at a couple different ones because you're looking for that fit and you're looking for someone that you can learn from, that you feel like is an expert in their discipline, whatever it is. And also that it's like there's a vibe there, right? Like you look forward. That's what I think is I want to, as a coach, I want to look forward to my clients like, oh, good, here's who's on the list. And for the client too, they should feel like this is a conversation they look forward to.
What I love about what you're saying, in discovering the vibe is that's the energy to start off with as a client. And certainly the first time that I was a coaching client, that's not the energy that I started off with. I was very, very lucky because my first coaching experience was completely transformative and fantastic.
Wow.
And I was lucky. The way that I describe it to potential clients, and it's actually one of the reasons why I love this discipline and love this business, is, when we're meeting and when we're figuring out what that vibe is, I often say to a client, listen, it's important to me, and I truly, truly believe that every single person could benefit from coaching, but I don't for a second believe that everyone could benefit from my coaching. So if there's no right,
agree.
So if there's no vibe,
I don't agree about you. I agree about you as well.
but if there's no vibe, then let's talk about that now, because if it's not me, I bet I know half a dozen people that it might be.
Right.
And let's make sure that you have the right fit. And let's make sure that is so when you show up, what is that? And to me, like the first word that's popping into my head is honesty.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had a conversation earlier this week with a new client, and we talked about like a value of authenticity. And then we changed it. She changed it. And it's been on my mind since then, because she said, it's not about authenticity, it's about integrity. And I think that, like, you can be authentic and not be a good fit, right? But integrity is something else. It's like, am I in integrity with this relationship? Am I in integrity with how I'm presenting myself? I think that to me is a more potent word to bring forward and to bring into the relationship.
yeah, there's a commitment in that space, and it's not, and when you first meet a coach, like saying there's a commitment, that's maybe heavy,
Yeah,
but I think that there is. I know it's not a commitment to the coach. It's a commitment to the relationship. It's a commitment to yourself.
yeah, that goes
Yeah.
back to the coactive coaching model, is you're both,
Mhm.
you're committed to the relationship. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And showing up committed to whatever it is that has brought you to wanting to have a conversation, that
right,
first conversation with a coach, and being really really clear. Because the other thing that it's popping up for me too is like, well, often a client doesn't know, well, what's a coach showing up with in that
right,
conversation
right.
with. And for me, it's curiosity and neutrality.
Yeah, I was just thinking about curiosity when you said that. Like, one of the things we talk about is coming from curiosity, and that goes for coach and client. And
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while, it doesn't happen too often, but every once in a while, a client will come and they'll have come with a topic or something they want to change in their life. And
Mm-hmm.
then they'll spend multiple sessions wrestling me to the mat for how they can't change their situation. And I'm always taken a little back. I'm like, you know what? You called me. It's not like I found you and yanked you out of where you were and said, you need to switch careers or you need to make this
Right.
change. And to me, that's like, it's a doomed relationship because there is no curiosity, there is no
Mm-hmm.
space for the relationship, right? For the
Yeah.
coaching relationship. And again, I don't think that they're uncoachable. I would never say someone's
No.
uncoachable. They may be uncoachable by me, or they may not be ready for coaching,
Mm-hmm.
or they may not be ready for coaching with me.
Okay. So I promise this wasn't an interview, but something that you just said is sparking a curiosity in me, and I really
Yeah.
want to ask a question. And you know, and this is because of the experience you've had. So when a client shows up and struggles, like you're saying, with being
Mhm.
curious, like what advice would you have? Like, I'm a client, I'm showing up, I'm having a really hard time sort of showing up in my curiosity and my objectivity. What what should I do?
It's like, well, a couple of things is, as a coach, I'm not in the advice giving business,
Of
as you know.
course.
I will share some, I'll
Thank
share
you.
some insights here. I think part of it is kind of checking myself. So when there's a situation like that, it's like, am I coming from judgment? Have I already decided that this client
Mm,
is stuck or this client is being disrespectful to me or the relationship, or like kind
mhm,
of what's going on my side.
mhm.
But also, this is a place for articulating what's going on. You
Right.
seem to be really resistant to this process. What would you have me do? I mean, I will use those words. It feels like you're wrestling me to the mat for how you can't change, and how
Yeah.
do you want me to be with you around that?
Mm,
And then in a very few situations, I have been like, this isn't a relationship that I can continue. It just isn't,
mhm,
it doesn't feel productive for me. It's not fun. And
mhm.
I don't think it's good for the client either.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I think when you say that, the word that pops up for me again is integrity.
Hmm.
Because a client knowing that a good coach, will approach that initial relationship with that kind of integrity, with, what, actually, this isn't something
Yeah.
that's going to be helpful to you, nor is it going to be helpful to me. It's not just about getting the sale.
Yeah.
It's not just about signing the client, because not
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
is for everybody. and
Yeah.
and
And in the
that's
beginning, it's
important to know.
hard. Yeah. It's hard to come from that place too when you're trying to build a practice and you
Oh,
need the
I'm
work,
clear.
you want it. Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? And it's not necessarily a bad thing either, because it's like, I've been wrong lots of times
Hmm.
where, it is a falling in love. Like, you have to,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll do an informational session and I'll be like, I don't know,
Mhm.
and then you get into it, and it is about leaning into the relationship and being
Mhm.
willing to create the connection.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that probably takes some practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's, I agree. And certainly, like, I think we covered some really, really rich content around, like, how do I show up at the very
Yeah.
beginning? And if we sort of fast forward a little bit into that place, where, all right, I've taken the plunge, I'm going to actually hire a coach,
Mhm.
and I know what it is. Then there's more, isn't there?
Mhm.
Right? And one of my clients asked me, so, like, Todd, how would you describe your successful clients? And which I thought was a great question.
Yeah.
And the answer that popped up for me is, like, my most successful clients are the ones who are fiercely committed to themselves.
Mhm. What does
And
that mean? Like, what does that
right.
look like? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it looks like different things for different people in different situations. And there's some basics. Like, I think there's some logistics,
Mhm.
within the context of a coaching session. It's helpful when a client shows up with something, like, what is our topic, right?
Yeah.
Or what are the things that are sort of at work in here? Because the coach is going to spend some time, saying, well, what's our topic? What's important about that? What kind
Yeah.
of outcome do you want? And knowing that that's going to happen will sort of provide some richness for the rest of the time, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's one thing. But I mean, also, vulnerability, knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable. Like, coaching isn't easy.
Yeah.
That's not true. Coaching itself is actually pretty cool. I have a great time with it. But being
Yeah.
coached, that can be hard.
Mhm.
Like,
It can be
transformation is not
uncomfortable.
comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
It can be uncomfortable
Yeah.
to be kind of held in that place.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, oh, yeah, it can be uncomfortable. And I think knowing that discomfort's going to be there, and making peace with it,
Yeah.
understanding that it's okay. I'm not sure what, like, when it happens for you, what's the experience that makes it robust?
What's interesting, what you're making me think of is the like how uncomfortable it is for me to be a client when
Mm.
I'm on the client side, because I think a lot of us came to coaching because we're so good at putting our focus on the other person. And so then and like kind of my MO is look at me, look at me. Okay, that's enough. It's like
I
I
know
like
that
attention,
feeling.
I like a certain amount of acknowledgement. And then it's like, okay.
Hmm.
And in coaching, you're kind of held in that it's like, are we still talking about me? It's super
Hmm.
uncomfortable. So it does, you have it's one of why, as a coach, one of the best things you can do is have a coach, right? Because you get a
Hmm.
sense of what it's like to be on the other side of it, and kind
Hmm.
of some empathy for how difficult that can be,
Yeah.
for how uncomfortable. And I think for me, what really works when I think about like I've worked really hard to curate my practice. So when I wake up in the morning and look at who's on my roster, it's like, let's go. It's like
Hmm.
good people who have stayed with me for a long time. And it is about that willingness to come ready to do the work, and to be honest with
Mm.
yourself and honest with me. And that's kind of, I keep it pretty simple like that, or are you here for that?
Yeah. Are you come ready to do the work? Like, that's
Yeah.
such a powerful statement, isn't it? And you know, I, it's interesting too, because one of the things, we talked about this before we turned the camera on, right?
Yeah.
About how, folks will show up. I have showed up into a therapy session, just sort of going, all right, here I am. Just let's do
Yeah.
the thing. And
Yeah. Do
I
that
don't have,
therapy
I
thing.
don't know what's
Yeah.
up, right? And
Like getting your hair cut.
and
Yeah.
exactly. And there's lots of, like, getting your haircut. That's a great analogy. And there's lots of differences between coaching and therapy. And one of them might be sort of the responsibility of the client within that context to sort
Yeah.
of, help create the agenda. Because, like you said, that, we're not in the business of giving advice or telling people what to do,
Right.
but we are in business of sort of enabling that transformation. right? Evoking that transformation, as it said. I interrupted you though.
No, no, no. I was just going to say that for some clients who are new to coaching, that's part of the design and part of the education process. Because
Mm,
mostly people who come to coaching, I find that haven't worked with coaches before, the model they have in their mind is a therapy model. And
mhm,
so they come to coaching really trying to be helpful, I find. And it's like so they sort of default into a therapy model where they're gonna just wait for you to do the work, that you're
mhm,
going to fix them or problem solve. And
mhm.
so as a new coach, you'll probably hear some things like, well, you're the expert, or you tell me, that's what I'm paying the money for, or that kind of
Yep,
thing. And that's
yep.
always an indication. I mean, it happens to me too. It's not just new coaches.
Mhm,
um, that's a reminder that, oh, wait, I didn't design this as well as I could, or I need to go back to the design and remind the
mhm,
client that, no, this is your work to do. I'm the keeper of the process, uh,
mhm.
but not the work or the outcome.
Right. Right. Not the work or
Yeah,
the outcome, right? And I think that's the thing that's such a big deal, because coaching absolutely can be transformative, but it's up
yeah,
to the client. Like,
yeah,
you have to do the work,
yeah.
and you have to be, and so to go back to the question, what does it mean to be fiercely committed to yourself as a client? I think
Right.
that's it, right? I gotta
Yeah,
be willing to do the work when I
yeah,
discover what it is.
yeah.
Huh.
I'll get back to the personal trainer analogy. Like, I realized that for the last couple of years, I had been kind of phoning it in. I've worked out with a trainer
Mhm,
for 15 years, like really
mhm,
solid. Um, and the last 2 years, I got into a group situation where I was doing it. And it's like, I mean, you can relate this to business development of your coaching practice. It's like
mhm,
you're doing the activity, but you're not
mhm,
creating any action. And that's how I felt with my trainer. That's how some people are in coaching. It's like, I'm
mhm,
going, I'm showing up, but are you really bringing the rigor for coach or client?
mhm.
And I feel like I can always get better at that. To
Mm,
remind myself, like, am I really bringing rigor to every coaching session? Am I
mm.
showing up really fully present? And be willing to do the things to make sure that happens.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and we talked about this before the camera started as well. Is when you brought up the personal trainer as a potential analogy, like, yes, we're talking about bringing potency to a coaching relationship, but all of these things apply in multiple situations, not just coaching,
Yeah,
and that's so cool.
right. It's a great question to ask too in an early coaching relationship, like when you're designing, is like,
Hmm.
how will I know when you're like hiding out, or how will I know, kind of what's your
Hmm.
tell?
Yeah,
And for a
what's your
lot of people, it's talking about it instead of feeling it, right? Or
yeah.
it's like, I coach a lot of coaches through certification,
Hmm.
and part of the design is like a mentor relationship, so they have
Hmm.
questions, right? But it's like, are you asking questions to avoid being coached, or are you asking,
Uh-huh.
so it's like, let's kind of get clean on that
Yeah.
up too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I think, from a client's perspective, it's you got to be okay with that kind of with being challenged like that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's I've got a coach who will say to me without hesitation, "Todd, you're in your head.
Yeah.
Get out of there."
Yeah.
And the first time I heard that, I was like, "What do you I don't know where else to go. What
Yeah.
are you even talking about?"
Nothing else. There's only this.
Exactly. Exactly,
Yeah.
right.
My own
Um,
coach said to me, she's very gracious about. Often she'll say to me, uh, that, like, that's so interesting. I'm sure you didn't come here to talk about my weekend or something like that, because I'm always like, right, like, she'll let me. We'll have like a little bit of like, how you doing, what'd you do, kind of like the getting there,
mhm.
but then she's always like, so, I'm sure you didn't come here to talk about my dog.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
gentle reminder that you've made an investment. Like you said, this
Yeah,
is expensive time together. Uh,
exactly.
and if I'm a client, you want to squeeze everything you've got out of that, right?
Exactly. Well, and
Yeah.
and for me as a coach, that's me being in my integrity.
Yeah.
Like a casual chit chat is, it might be delightful, but I actually, I had one client who, can I say this? I can say this. I had a client where, I think I was feeling cheeky, and after, a couple minutes of storytelling, I was like, I bet that's a conversation that you ought to have or could have for free with a member of your family.
Yes. Yeah, it's like,
Right?
I'm a really expensive friend
Yeah.
if you're gonna just shoot the shot, or you're gonna go through this whole story
Mhm.
about, he said and she said and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
thinking of, Todd, is the idea of like what creates potency is, I'm
Mhm.
connecting some dots here. Like what creates potency is that like ringing out, like getting
Mm.
everything out of. It's like more
Mhm.
concentrated. That's
Mhm.
what that's like a good context, I think, or like a good um, structure to think about a coaching call or a coaching relationship. Like you
Mhm.
want it to be highly concentrated because it's
Yeah.
expensive time.
Well, and the things that I learned within the context of a coaching session, right? A
Mm.
coaching, like that hour, 45 minutes, or how long I spend with my coach, like the things that I learned there, then I have until the next time to apply them and
Right.
to experiment and to play and to do all of those things. So that's the thing, like, the really super concentrated stuff, which then can be applied and diluted over the course of the
Right.
next however long. and
Yeah.
and that's really getting your money's worth.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
also why it's hard work for a client, and it's meant to be.
Yeah. I'm not sure we do a great job, or I should say, I'm not sure I do a great job of reinforcing that to the client
Mm.
of like that's where that percolation between sessions is where the hard work
Yeah,
happens,
well, and it's in and it's, yeah, I don't know why that popped up, but I think of the coaching relationships that I have where I am being coached, and making sure to make time to apply. That some coaches use the word homework, some people like to say
field work.
experiment,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Exactly, or whatever it is. But I always love it when a coach gives me a challenge, because it's always scary, and I
yeah,
always try to say yes even when it doesn't feel like a yes.
yeah,
And because there's something even in the tentative or weird yes. But yeah, and which actually brings me to another thing that I was thinking too, because the word that was popping up as you were talking about, potency within the context of a relationship as a client is stay.
mm,
Because, like, not only is it going to get uncomfortable, it's going to get uncomfortable to a point where you might want to back off. You might
yeah,
want to, like, before it's done.
mm-hmm,
And there's a piece of it that's about, like, if you really want to be fiercely committed to yourself and your growth, then stay even when it doesn't feel like staying.
yeah, yeah. And as
Mhm.
a coach, it's important to be tuned into that
Yeah.
and tuned into where it's sort of like, I think about it like like a valve where it's
Mhm.
like to be tuned into your client, maybe needing to let a little, like they can only stay there for so long. And
Mhm.
then you might need to let off a little pressure, but
Yep.
also to hold, it's a little bit of a, like a loose hold.
Mhm.
It's like you don't want to hold them down
Yep.
kind of thing, right? It's
Yep.
like a little loose hold so that you can pop out of it a little bit. And because I find that but it's the coach's job to hold the thread, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I go down a path with a client and then they need to go somewhere else to relieve a little pressure. And it's our job as
Mhm.
coaches to bring them back uh,
Right.
to, to squeeze a little more out of where you were.
Yeah, exactly. So that in between time can be
Yeah.
really, really valuable, no matter how long that is, right? And I know that, for some clients it's really short, and for some clients it's much
Yeah.
longer, and yeah, it can be different. Oh,
Yeah.
this is fun. Because you know
I'm not
what? I
drinking
don't.
coffee, by the way. I've already had my 4-shot latte. This
It,
is it's electrolyte.
all good.
Hydration, very important for coaching.
It really, really is. Hydration is extremely important. Well, and and
You took care of
you're way out
yourself.
in California, right? It's
I
hot where you
am. I'm in Palm
are. Yeah,
Springs. It's hotty hot.
indeed. Right. Yeah, this is so interesting because I don't often get to sort of think about potency from the client's perspective in the same way. And this is helpful to me. And I'm hoping that
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this wisdom is something that goes out to.
I used to, this is, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I was going to share, like, I remember when I was starting out in coaching, and I felt like I used to do all my coaching in person.
Mhm.
And I always thought I would want to put the money on the table at the beginning of the
Mm,
session. And at
mhm,
the end of the session, it's like the person gets to pick it up. If it's like, was this valuable? Like, did we create value here?
mhm.
And it's not the coach's responsibility to create value, but value should be created, you know.
Absolutely.
But it's
Yeah.
like it's like betting with your with your money there,
Well,
because it feels like you have to hold that rigor in every session, right? And
mhm.
I think that's hard to do over extended relationships.
Yeah. Well, and both coach and client need to hold that
Yeah,
rigor because
I
there's
agree.
there's a like it's not a hierarchical relationship. It's a peer relationship
Yeah,
in some ways.
yeah. In many ways, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the time and our time has whizzed by, Julie. I
That's
know, right?
crazy.
I
Yes.
know. Is there anything so by way of wrapping up, right?
It,
Like what would you like to leave the folks who are listening to this with?
yeah, if this were a coaching session, I would say, what have we learned today? What have we learned today, and what do you want to take with you?
Hmm. Are you asking me? Because I can
Oh,
answer
well,
that.
you can go first, or I'll go.
I, well, what I learned today is that I mm, I felt some of this outside my head and in here. Like
Yeah,
I felt that there was a connection, and not, I mean, obviously a connection between you and me because I love spending time with you.
me
Um,
too.
but I can't do that. There you
I think the
um,
kids do it a different way
but
now.
do I?
Something, yeah.
It's I Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I can. So I not only that, but also like a connection to the client, like the essential client,
Hmm.
um, and to be honest, I think sort of being really intentional about these expectations of potency within that initial design.
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm taking away.
For me, I think it's what kind of triggered both of us around the idea of potency, and how,
Hmm.
like, that word just stuck with me from our original conversation.
Hmm.
And what it makes me think of, and what I want people to take away, is that complacency is the enemy of,
Hmm.
like, a really successful, satisfying coaching relationship. This
Hmm.
conversation makes me want to be a better coach. Reminds me to be like, oh yeah, like, bring the rigor every time, and, like, really hold each other in the relationship responsible to that.
Yeah.
And it is like a, as much as, like, relationships can be really long in coaching, it is like that recommitment every time
Hmm.
of, like, we're here for the rigor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something really beautiful about that, and
Yeah.
really,
This is important
it's
work. It's really
it is.
important work. And it's like my favorite topic, unless you want to talk about my
Yep.
kids and my grandkids. It's like I just get so inspired
Awesome.
talking to you specifically. You
Oh,
inspire
thank
me.
you.
And talking about coaching generally. It just gets me jazzed up again.
Thank you. I
Thank
received that,
you.
and same. Exactly. So, Julie, we're at the end. If the folks listening want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, Julie at hotcoffeecoaching.com.
Awesome. Julie at
Thank you.
hotcoffeecoaching.com. And I'm Todd at toddcargis.com. And this is a wrap. So, Julie, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And I know I'll see you again soon.
I'll see you soon, maybe tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.
Thank you.